Can I call the Assembly to order? Trusting that you're fully refreshed and ready for the next 7 hours. We're going to return to section 17 of the Faith Action Programme Leadership Team. Before I do so, I've just received a note. You may know that occasionally at the top table, sweets have been known to slip through the mouth of some of those esteemed colleagues in right and left. I have this message, not just any sweets, M&S sweets, lots of love to the top table for all your work, the youth reps.
Moderator, point of order, 212 Kerr. I would like to say I went for a prawn sandwich, and it wasn't any prawn sandwich, it was the best prawn sandwich ever at lunchtime. And due to the cyber attack on supermarkets, I'm sorry to say that Edinburgh Marks and Spencer's has no Percy Pig products. Now, sorry, stop it. Just let that sink in. Except for FAPLT, no Percy Pig products are in Edinburgh. So, Moderator, I'm sure you'll enjoy them, but remember the rest of us in the cheap seats.
Always.
Thank you. Well.
Laughter is an important part of important business. I want to say this to you. You will remember that there's the big sing coming on at 7, and we need to prepare the hall in order to do honour to the Guild and all those who will be at that. So I want to ask you that we take business seriously, but we try and get through it as quickly as we can and effectively for the sake of colleagues who've been planning another event in this hall for 7 o'clock. We return then to number 17. Now, you may remember we had a problem just trying to resolve the issue Professor Sturrock was raising. We are actually going to bring a new number 17 that comes on behalf of the convener, but it actually comes with the support of Professor Sturrock. And in order that we might confirm that, I'm going to ask Professor Sturrock to come on and say that he is happy for this new 17 to capture the essence of what he was trying to raise earlier. Professor Sturrock online, we'd be welcome to hear from you. Yes, perhaps you should read it, Clark.
Thank you, Moderator. So there's the new section 19. It's encouraged...
17.
17. What did I say? 19?
Yeah.
Do you know, we're having that problem today, aren't we? Saying words we didn't think. Anyway, thank you very much. Section 17. Encourage presbyteries through their planning committees to be more intentional in their inclusion of posts suited to those in diaconal ministry in future incarnations of presbytery mission plans.
And is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. Professor Sturrock, can he come online?
Moderator, Roger Sturrock 173. I must apologize for the delay in coming back on this. It is somewhat tricky communicating with the top table when you're online. But I'm grateful to the Deputy Clerk for emailing me with this new section 17, which I'm perfectly content with and happy to support.
Thank you so much, Professor Sturrock. We're sorry there was that breakdown. So going on to this matter, we have a question first from Alistair Cumming, and then we have a comment first from Elaine Wood, and then from Alec Shuttleworth. So Alistair Cumming. No, you're on the screen. You're not on the screen.
Moderator, that's just a technical error on our behalf.
Sorry, Alistair, you're a technical error. Thank you. Could we have Elaine Wood and Alec Shuttleworth in that order? Thank you. Elaine?
Thank you, Moderator. Elaine Wood, 521. As a deacon on probation, I am a rare breed. And today I wanted to speak not just for myself, but for others who may feel called to this ministry now or in the future. I've resisted since the beginning of my training, entering into the negativity that sometimes is associated with the diaconate, that they aren't valued, or that they aren't seen, or that they are seen as assistants to real ministers. We spoke earlier today about seeking to creatively deploy ministers to charges within presbyteries. And I speak in support of this new motion and ask that we also think about creatively deploying all ministries who have a lot to offer. In fact, I would say that deacons can go a long way to augmenting traditional word and sacrament ministries as they bring significant missional opportunities and possibilities to existing congregations and communities, helping them to flourish and grow in Christ-centred ways. I've been truly grateful for the opportunity this church has afforded me to engage in a robust and enjoyable training, which others have recognised today as the same as my word and sacrament colleagues. This has allowed me to discern and follow my call to share and put Christ's love and service into action in many communities across central Scotland. Unfortunately, however, this same church, until now, doesn't seem to have factored deacons into their mission planning. Instead, there are many posts which are titled MDS or deacon, and this technically means that the majority of opportunities available for me to apply to as a newly qualified, excited deacon filled with enthusiasm and a thirst to creatively engage in mission within the church are part-time roles with an MDS remit, which is the role that I began prior to 3 years of training. 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure of attending the Methodist Diaconate Conference in Stafford and was inspired by their focus on abundance. Their church, just like ours, was having some struggles, and the focus is often on the negative and the sense of scarcity that we have all developed about the church. However, can I suggest that when we look out at the wide-ranging skills and resources that we have at our fingertips across all ministries, and when we look out with the four walls of our own church to the many exciting new worshipping communities which are developing all the time, we shouldn't focus on the scarcity. Rather, we should look at the abundance that we have and think carefully about how we deploy this and develop it. The Methodist message that week was to begin and develop change with an attitude of gifts and not deficits. This will transform and enable change. So I would invite the Assembly to consider a new focus on diaconal ministry as a ministry which can significantly augment the work of team ministries in the 21st century. Not just an add-on or an assistant, but a ministry in its own right with a lot to offer the church, particularly today. The church has invested a lot in my training, and I feel blessed to have been part of this journey with some very skilled and reflective practitioners. I'm hopeful about the abundance and the future of the Church of Scotland and think that there are immense possibilities to explore what the Ministry of Word and Service has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shuttleworth.
Yes, sorry, Moderator. Mine's actually the 17 that's in the print. It's the next one, not this one.
Okay, thank you. Well, then we'll just ask, there's no other comments. Convener, this has come from you. Do you have a final word before we see if we're accepted? You haven't an initial word, so you can have a final word.
Thank you very much. Moderator, I simply want to acknowledge and affirm the ministry of deacons. We have a long history of diaconal ministry in the Church of Scotland. These are people who are compassionate and caring and dedicated, and we understand that they have a really important role to play, and we want to support them as much as we can in playing that role to the best and fullest of their ability within the life of the church. We just want to say thank you for all that you do as deacons to support and encourage folks in congregations and other places across the country.
The convener accepts his own proposal. Does the General Assembly accept this new number 17? And online? Thank you very much. We turn then to 17 in the print. Now, I have a whole host of people who want to speak to it. Can I again say that unless you've something significant Vice Convener with a new speech to get us all ready. Thank you. No speech. No speech. Okay. So we're on to section 17, as in the print. And we have a whole number of people. Again, can I say, keep your speeches brief, and if someone said it, you don't have to say it again, and after a while I'll just cut you short because I've run out the will to live. Let's start with David Cameron and Stephanie Hartley.
Thank you, Moderator. David Cameron, 252. Nice to be back on this particular topic. And I'm not just saying what I'm about to say because David, who I spoke to earlier, and I are having lunch on Sunday or Saturday, and we're restoring that friendship. But I want to say, personally, I'm delighted to see this particular item within the report. I welcome the vision of this desire to see both new worshiping communities and church plants. I also recognise, as we heard through the convener's opening remarks today, that the moment may still not be right to receive such a challenge and opportunity for many congregations at the moment. The convener will recall the vision that was shared and accepted by the General Assembly around 2017 by the then Emerging Churches Group. It invited all churches to embrace a simple challenge, and that was this, that every church should plant a church by the year 2020. In the report, I note that in point 2544, reference is made to the prospect of planting 100 new churches. Perhaps when the time is right, the leadership team might be ready to set before the church a vision once again that every church might plant a church, perhaps by the year 2030. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Hartley.
Stephanie Hartley, 530. I was a bit torn with the planting churches because I know that planting churches is so important because we're called to disciple others. And like the prospect of introducing people to God's love is really exciting. But on the other hand, from the past week, I've been hearing a lot about budget cuts and people losing their jobs, and I know that there needs to be a clear balance between existing churches and how they are able to run under tight money constraints and the high investment needed to plant new churches. I would urge a note of caution, as I think this rush to create new churches may be harmful in the long run. If these churches don't thrive, or after a couple of years their funding is cut, how is this going to affect those who join the church plants? How will their relationship with God and the church be affected? Will they feel let down or abandoned? And what will current members' relationship with the church and God look like if they don't feel invested in and face issues caused by a lack of funding because it has been invested elsewhere? So can we be mindful of not starting things we can't commit to long term as we develop a church planting strategy, and maybe look at things like planting people in existing churches instead of putting new churches in place? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Alex Shuttleworth. Oh, he's disappeared. Wait, he's just there. No, I know, but he just disappeared from my screen. Come and speak because you're not easy to see. And then James Patron Bell.
I'm not easy to see and impossible to ignore. Thank you, Moderator.
Always, Alex.
Alex Shuttleworth, number 261. I appreciate that contribution very much from the gallery, because actually one of the things about standing up to kind of oppose this motion is that it sounds like you're in favour of sin and against all good things. It seems such an obvious good to do church planting. But I want to invite the committee to not do this, and to not do this at the scale and with the priority which you're giving it. Review, by all means, the available literature, look at the old plans and so on. But this, I'm afraid, smacks of busy work. It smacks of something that we feel we should be filling our time with. An overall national policy for what essentially are going to be local situations. Seems to me busy work. And I appreciate the desire to do busy work, but I don't think it's necessary, and I think you'd be better concentrating on other things. I really do. There is plenty out there already on the subject of church planting. Thank you very much, Moderator.
Thank you very much. I'll have James Patron Bell and then Andrew Morrison.
Moderator James Patron Bell, 438. Can I encourage those drawing up this strategy to include a few key factors in their work? 1. Linking with existing church planting networks already at work in Scotland. 2. The areas proposed for plants will be well surveyed to assure that there is actually space for the plant and it's not a duplication of work already underway there. From experience, some areas seem to attract many church plants to them. God seems to call a lot of people to the same space. Some of them tend to have nice coffee shops, and other areas seem completely neglected. And thirdly, that the strategy also include an option, or dare I say, a definite affirmation and positive move towards planting being done in cooperation with other churches and bodies, denominations across the nation, and not simply by the Kirk. That this would allow for the resources to be used to best support the work of both the kingdom and the church.
Thank you. Andrew? In the gap in here? There, you're on.
Andrew Morrison, number 342. I'd love to commend this section. I'm so grateful for it being brought before the Assembly today. Church planting is vital to the growth of the church. After all, every church that we are part of, wherever we are in Scotland or beyond, was once a church plant. Scotland needs Jesus, and so many of them won't enter our existing church doors, no matter how much advertising we do, no matter how relevant we try to make our worship style. But let me tell you some good stories about church planting. Our siblings across the road in the Free Church of Scotland are meeting this week in their assembly, and they're telling their assembly of their desire to plant 30 by 30. 30 churches by 2030. In other words, increasing their church numbers by around a third. Imagine the Church of Scotland, rather than shrinking, was growing by a third in the next few years. They already have 17 planted. Many are fully fledged churches, paying their own way for their minister, and so on. One close to me, a good friend of mine, is in a church who's a church plant. They're already growing so much, they're looking for more accommodation. I recently worshipped in another one on holiday, meeting in an old Church of Scotland building that had closed down. They bought it over, and on a Sunday I was there. Their Sunday school was thriving, and they were establishing new elders and deacons in their congregation. 20 schemes are reaching the poorest schemes in Scotland, often going to places where even the Church of Scotland has often had to retreat from due to budget cuts. But they go into the poorest schemes of Scotland to say, we want to reach the poorest folk with the good news of Jesus. My old home church, East Kilbride, was a church plant 30 years before I was born. I'm so grateful that our forefathers planted it 60-odd years ago. For in a new housing estate, they needed a church. And my family were de-churched. They stopped going to church as teenagers, my mum and dad. And only because a church was nearby did I meet Jesus and become saved. Near us back home in Aberdeenshire, the Vineyard Church are planting about a dozen across Aberdeen and the Shire. Many are thriving, bringing new people to Jesus regularly. In fact, in one of the SU groups that I run, well, not today, but I would have been there otherwise, there's a young girl who goes to our SU group. Her family now worship in that local church. They live in our community, but we didn't reach them, but the church plant did. They were baptised and regular worshippers in that church. One of our young members is now serving in a church in United Free Church, a thriving congregation in a place where students are going to, but not the local Church of Scotland. South of the borders, one of our elders' children are involved in an HDB church plant in Gateshead. In 5 years, 300 people are now worshipping that congregation that the established Church of England and others were not reaching, including a Farsi-speaking congregation as part of it. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the traditional church, and Sunday, the two buildings I look after have a combined age of 1,000 years. But I know that we probably aren't called to exist forever and ever. All the New Testament letters tell us of churches that now no longer exist, but they went on to plant other churches across the Roman Empire to replace them. Indeed, our Presbyterianism is so widespread across the globe because the Church of Scotland and others went to plant churches across the world. As a denomination, we need church planting. The people of Scotland who badly need Jesus need church planting. I long to see the fruit of this church planting in years to come.
Okay. Can I just, we have 3 names left on the board. If they've something new to say since they're speaking in favour of it, I'll give them a minute. But Ben Thorpe, you've said quite a lot today. Have you something new?
Wow, that was shade. Ben Thorpe 174, I will be quick. I will need to declare an interest. My wife is Vice Convener of Seeds for Growth and works as a Mission Pioneering and Planting Coordinator in Glasgow Presbytery. I want to commend this as someone who came into the Church of Scotland through a church plant. Although it feels like we've been talking about this for a long time. Now is the time to actually be strategic about it, because we kind of almost missed the boat. But also, you mentioned structures, and I want to say that's so vitally important, because at the moment, our issue is not willingness in many places, it is structures. And so I'm glad to see that structures are being mentioned as we try and work out not only how can we fund, that's only one thing, but actually how can we manage these new church plants in a way that our existing structures do not stifle and kill them before they have a chance to grow.
Thank you. Does James Reid or Alan Childs have something to add? That's our last 2 names. James.
Jim Reid, it's not Sunday, moderator. Thank you. I speak from personal experience. I was ordained in 260.
Thank you.
I was ordained in a primary school, albeit it was a congregational ministry. In a primary school, the church was 5 years old. That church planted 2 other churches, we called them worship centres. And one of them went on to continue to plant. One, we missed the wave, but that was where the NCD, a Church of Scotland NCD, was planted. And the mother church united with the Church of Scotland. The learnings from that, make it ecumenical, evangelical and ecumenical. Buildings sometimes are helpful, sometimes not. But why on earth in Scotland, when we've grown by deduction and by division, it's time to grow by addition and multiplication. Bill Hybels had it. The church is the hope of the world. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you. And finally, Alan Childs. Anything additional to add? In the gallery.
007, Childs, Alan Childs. I would just like to highlight the necessity and the value of church planting or creating communities of worship amongst students, where the universities are. It's such a critical phase in a person's life, and I find that we often, as mainstream churches, we actually lose many of our leaders, and many of the seekers, we never get them, because we are not there in significant enough means of impact, specifically for students. I know we have a history of having had congregations around universities. I honor what the chaplains do, the university chaplains. It's not quite the same as a university or a student congregation. And I'm grateful that FAPLT in their report also highlights or mentions the need to also be thinking about planting amongst university communities. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call it a halt there. Others want to speak, but I think we'll ask Jonathan, who didn't speak before, to say something, and then we'll take a vote.
Thank you, Moderator. Jonathan Fleming, Convener of the Mission Support Programme Group and Vice Convener of FAPLT. Very grateful to all who have contributed to their views to this section of the deliverance. I was presented during my first ministry with a 1973 copy of Life and Work, which had on its front page a new pioneer ministry, and that was the new town of Erskine, when it was built in 1971. And the Reverend David Harper, who took his leave and retired, his retirement was announced in the same General Assembly that I was welcomed as a new minister in 2013. It was lovely to see the story of the birth of that church and how it evolved from a community centre. It actually started out, its first service was held in a flat in the new development of Erskine, where a number of people, one of whom I actually had the honour of conducting the funeral, took great pleasure of telling me on their hospital bed that they first worshipped God at Erskine on the clergy, because they were actually there was no room in the flat. Everyone was so desperate to fit in. And it evolved and it grew into a school, and then they built a church. and I had the honour of serving as the minister there from 2012 until 2017. And I know that the current minister who took over from me is a commissioner today and is taking that congregation on in leaps and bounds. In response to a lot of the conversations that we've had here today, please be assured that we are working with other denominations. We have been learning from others in 12 church denominations in the Scottish Church Planting Network. And the experience that we're observing is that when the church invests in church planting, that is what actually brings revitalisation to the existing church too. A symbiotic relationship between the existing and the new. I would also lean into the very fact that we are here under the theme this year of extravagant love, spilling out beyond the churches we're already in and into the new. So with all of these points, please be assured that we are listening, we are not rushing, and I commend this section of the deliverance to the Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Is the Assembly happy to accept this deliverance? Yes, thank you. And is that true online? Thank you. We come to a new 18. It's in the name of Marilyn Bacon. I'm going to ask the Principal Clerk to read it.
Thank you, Moderator. Instruct FAPLT to engage in a process of listening and learning by engaging with congregations across Scotland where growth in numbers or spiritual vitality is evident in order to identify effective practices and share them with congregations facing decline or difficulty so that existing congregations are supported in renewal alongside church planting.
Is this seconded? Can I ask the convener, is the committee willing to accept it? Do you want to explain what the minor tweak is before we invite? Right. Yes or no? Does it say, you want to add and beyond?
Yeah, okay, but we'll accept it, but
okay.
just as
no, you can't. That closes the debate. You can't say anything. Thank you. Right. Marilyn, Martina, the committee are willing to accept it. Are you wanting to speak or
Up in the gallery, Moderator.
Right.
Yeah, if I could say something about it.
If you could be brief then,
yes.
That would be great. Thank you.
Martina back on 524. Moderator, members of Assembly, well, I appreciate the vision behind the proposal for the church planting strategy and the desire to the new growth in our church. I believe this is a major move that requires much thought, clarity, and planning. Church planting involves a significant investment, not only of time and people, but of money we may not realistically have. We are talking about investing in buildings, developing leadership pathways, and supporting entirely new communities. While still navigating deep challenges in our existing structure, if this goes wrong, we risk wasting precious resources. Right now, the funding available in the Seeds for Growth Fund has been reduced, so that I don't think there is nearly enough to support a national church planting strategy in a new way FAPLT seems to imply in this report. At the same time, we are still working to implement the Presbytery Mission Plan with the difficult goal of reducing our number of ministers to 660. We cannot ignore the pressure that places on congregations and ministers already carrying heavy burdens. On leadership, I have concerns too. The proposal mentions Magnitude as a resource of potential church planters. I've been involved myself with the sports team at Magnitude, and while I've seen real faith and commitment, most attendees are young people who aren't in a position to engage in church planting just now. They are still at school. Discernment and calling take time. It's not something that can be fast-tracked for a summer event. Finally, this moment in the church calls for unity and mutual learning, not rushing ahead. We should be investing time in visiting and learning from churches that are growing now, understanding what's working and helping other churches grow too. We need a strategy that includes renewing the existing church, not focusing on starting something new at the expense of the existing ones. So I believe we need a slower, more deliberate process, one rooted in evidence, prayer, and shared learning. Let's walk in step with each other, not run ahead and risk leaving others behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. I hear one more person. Susan Pym wants to make a comment. She's online.
Thank you, moderator. Because I'm online, I can't... Sorry, name and number. Susan Pym, number 421. Because I'm online, I can't necessarily hear what is being said at the top table. So I just wanted to raise something, and please correct me if it's already been dealt with. The wording is instruct FAPLT to engage in a process of listening and learning by engaging with congregations across Scotland, where growth in numbers or spiritual vitality is evident. Could I ask if that could just be changed simply to across the Church of Scotland, and that would allow it to include our presbyteries, the international presbyteries, and the Presbytery of England and the Channel Islands. At the end of the day, we're the Church of Scotland. We're not simply the Church in Scotland. Thank you.
Tina, are you happy with this? I'm sure there's no problem. You're happy with that minor change? It covers all the Church of Scotland. Thank you. I know the committee are happy. Are we happy to make that amendment? Thank you. And online. Thank you very much for that. And with that amendment, which is what they were...
I'm sorry, could you please pause? Because we have to update this.
Okay.
We need to know what's passed, it then gets lost in the system, and then we can't get it.
Okay. So it's like... Yes. So it's adding the words across the Church of Scotland. I think it's now there. It's been passed, right? Let's move on. So that was a new section. We're now on to section 18 as in the print, and we have two people to speak to that, Aidan Wansborough and then Christopher Rowe.
In the gallery, moderator.
Thank you.
Aidan Wansborough, 541. Moderator, I welcome section 26 of the FAPLT report identifying ways to include mission among younger generations in the life of the Church. As noted in section 26.3, among under 40s, the gap in outreach to those who are too old to be reached by children and youth ministry but are not parents, so are not reached by family ministries, is evident. While it should be noted that students in large cities in some cases form an exception and are well reached by Christian unions and existing ministries across denominations, I would encourage churches to consider events and programs specifically to reach young adults, and especially non-student young adults with the gospel too, for whom, unlike my university friends, there are fewer events and programs to invite them to. However, as a student myself, I do wish to highlight that one of the greatest needs of Christian students is intergenerational fellowship outside their own age cohort so they can be discipled by older Christians. Many of us students already have access to strong supporting student Christian communities through the work of Christian unions and the like, but have a need to learn from elders in the faith and the wider church. CUs actually strongly encourage students to engage with local churches for this reason. Myself and several others I know selected our student churches in part on the basis of which churches provided this intergenerational fellowship, like mixed Bible study and fellowship groups. And I myself have benefited hugely from being part of one. So I would encourage congregations to pursue such intergenerational work. Resources to help churches learn more about being intergenerational already exist in the Being an Intergenerational Church module in the Church of Scotland Learning Platform. Offering these intergenerational opportunities could be as simple, though, as encouraging young adults, students or not, to join existing Bible study groups rather than creating something specific for them and their peers, though more work may be required to reach those without existing ties to the church. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Aidan. We have no other comment. Since that was in favour, you're happy? Is the Assembly happy to accept that? Thank you. Now, can I just explain... And online, thank you. Can I just explain that as well as finishing this report, we have also got a petition as well as another report, and we have 70 minutes roughly to do it. So if you don't have to say something and we're moving and you're supporting the committee, let's try and move that graciously forward so that we can deal with all the business in the time that we've got. So we move on to section 19. The only name I have is Marjorie Clark. Marjorie. Thank you.
Marjorie Clark, number 306. I just want to take 1 minute to say that I was privileged to have been employed as the coordinator of the HIV programme for 8 years, and I want to thank everybody in the church for their support over the 22 years of the programme. But I want to make particular mention of the Heart and Soul Swing Band, who have raised over £40,000 for the HIV programme since 2013, 3 of whom are here today, at least 3 anyway, Robin Hill, Alex Shuttleworth and Mark Prow. And I'm delighted to say that the Heart and Soul Swing Band is going to continue on its way, and they're going to be raising money now for Christian Aid. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the Assembly accept section 19? You weren't up here, so I think we've done it. On to section, new section 20 in the name of Christopher Rowe, which I'll get the Principal Clerk to read.
Thank you very much. Note and welcome the Church's ongoing commitment to its priority to the poor and the recent review of priority area work in a changing context.
Is that seconded? Is the committee minded to accept it? Christopher, given that the committee are minded to accept it, do you still have something to say, or are you happy for it to be accepted?
May I speak very briefly, Moderator?
If it's very brief.
Christopher Rowe, number 170. I think it's important not just to let this go noted. It's a significant review has taken part of priority areas work, and I don't take that work for granted. I speak as a priority areas minister in Glasgow for 17 years. So I want to thank the team. I want to draw the General Assembly's attention to the fact that that team is just 2.25 people now. So when we speak about affirming our commitment to the priority to the poorest, it's to note that that context is in of a shrinking church. So I want to thank those team members for their support. And I just want to raise a question of slight concern at 27.7.1, which says to expand the remit to support missional work in all areas of deprivation rather than just priority areas on the priority areas list. And it was just to ask a question in a shrinking resourced church to be expanding the remit. I understand the logic. It also has dangers. And I think one of the acts of wisdom of the priority areas was that focus on the poorest as defined by the SIMD. And I was just to invite a comment from an answer to that question. Thank you.
Vice Convener Jonathan, you want to come and speak?
Thank you, Christopher, for this section and also for your question. It was just to give that word of assurance that the priority areas team are well connected to the local context, the priority area context, and also connected to the wider mission support group in order that the resources are used as appropriate and to make sure that where assistance or resources are sought after, we all work together for those things to be delivered accordingly. Please don't see it as a dilution of the work, but rather just an expansion where necessary to allow us to fulfil the secondary principles of presbytery planning. Thank you.
Okay, can we ask, is this new section accepted? And online. We move then on to section 20 in the print. I'm not seeing it on my screen. There we are. Section 20 in the print. There's no one wishing to speak. Is the Assembly willing to accept section 20 as in the print? And online. Okay. We now have done 21, so we're now on to a new section 22 in the name of... could you read it, please?
Certainly. Thank the Gaelic Committee for their work stemming from the Gaelic Development Plan 2022 to 2025 and affirm the continued shaping of a follow-on 5-year plan to be brought to the General Assembly of 2026, complete with the review of work undertaken in the year 2025 to 2026.
And I see two people here. I see to my left Hugh Stewart, a Gaelic speaker. Hugh, come and speak. And then if William Henderson has something to say, then we'll take that too. Hugh.
Thank you, moderator, for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
You want to stand near the microphone? That's all. Okay,
that's better. I'd just like to thank the committee for their vision in reaching out to the children of Scotland with the Gaelic project. Thank you very much for all the work you're doing through your Gaelic committee. Now, I'm on the Gaelic committee, so I've vested into the stairs. I'm not thanking myself, but it's the only way I can thank the committee, particularly Lord Minganish. We are thankful to the Lord himself for the Gaelic Story Bible, for the animation using Lego, the ambassadors who have gone into schools across Scotland, story resources prepared in digital, print and audio formats, including manga for children who are enabled to more effectively read and understand the biblical resources provided to them. We thank God for this, and it's intergenerational. Granny, grandpa, dad, mum, brother, sister are with the children, learning about Jesus and the great love that God has for them in all of these formats. And it's cross-societal. There's the people in the priority areas, and there's the people in the mansions who have access to this. Particularly, I'd like to thank all the unpaid volunteers from all the denominations who helped this project and provide their talents free, to the local authorities and head teachers who allowed us to go into schools in Scotland for a whole day and do pilot classes with them, to the United Free Church, to the Free Church of Scotland, and to the Roman Catholic Church. And we record our thanks to the director, Barbara Cooper, for utilising and encouraging the use of the animation videos in the diocese across Scotland. We'd like to thank Education Scotland and HMIE, and Rob Rawson, Leslie Messer-Hamilton, and Kay Cathcart. Thank you to the Assembly, and in conclusion, when this went forward to the Assembly in 2021, it was challenged by a senior ecclesiastical person. The General Assembly voted by a majority of over 400. And when I went home, a letter came to me from a lady who was from France, living in Edinburgh, with a wee donation for the work of Gaelic ministry and mission. The Lord has multiplied that, and particular thanks to the children of Scotland who have told us, come back again. So thank you, moderator. I'm sorry I spoke so long, but that's what happens when you come to the island.
William Henderson, if you have something to add briefly in English, that would be great.
Bill Henderson 234. I will spare the Assembly my limited Gaelic, but on a local basis, I am locum minister in a church in East Kilbride, which has got 2 Gaelic medium education schools. I do try to use Gaelic when I'm in the schools, and it does seem to be appreciated. I'll just summarise by saying that we are called to reach out to people, we are called to spread the message, we are called to use words when necessary, and can I add, use Gaelic words when appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. The convener is happy to accept this. Is the Assembly happy to accept this? Thank you. And online. Okay, so we come back to section 22 in the print about South Sudan. I have one name, Thomas McRoberts, and then we'll take our vote.
Moderator, only known as Thomas when my mother wanted me to know that I was in very, very, very serious trouble, and also by the General Assembly. Doug McRoberts, 376. I want to share a moment with the Assembly and with those who are watching from the time my wife and I were in Malta. Concerns a young mum from South Sudan. She and her baby were rescued from the Mediterranean near death, and she was sharing with us in a Sunday service about how God had rescued them, and the 2 things that brought the baby back to life and possibly also saved her life were the life jackets that were available to drag her from the water of the Mediterranean when their refugee boat sank, and the fresh water that was available when they got on board the rescue ship. Now, the water and the life jackets were both bought by money raised in Scotland because this was a Guild partner project. They owed their lives to people here who knew about what was going on and who prayed about it and who gave money, and that enabled us to be there in the moment of need. And that's mission. And I'm speaking in support of not only this deliverance, but the two which follow it. But I'm trying to draw threads together here. Everybody who is here today, think about mission projects. When you know about something, then you can pray about it. When you pray about it, then you're prompted to give. And when you give, there will be people there who can make a difference. And I don't believe it's any coincidence that we have churches of Scotland and partner churches, in all the world's trouble spots and on all the world's refugee trails. The important thing starts with the information. We talked about it earlier on this afternoon in the context of FAPLT, and I simply want to encourage FAPLT to make it easier through the new communication strategy for all the congregations represented here and for all the presbyteries now represented here to focus on developing mission projects. Look for the information. And now that we are big presbyteries, let's use that economy of scale to go for big mission projects which will make a real difference. And FAPLT, please, as you develop the communications, make it easier for them to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you very much for that. We could spend the whole day talking about our world stage and situations there, but thank you for that. Is the Assembly willing to accept section 22? Thank you. Online, thank you. We move then on to section 23. And we have Barry Hughes online. Barry.
Thank you, Moderator. I just want to say thank you to the convener and to FAPLT for including this delivery. I had the great good fortune 2 years ago in the summer of 2023 of spending 3 weeks in South Korea as part of the World Scout Jamboree, which you may remember reading about. It was a wee bit of a disaster in places, but we were exceptionally fortunate to be able to visit not one, but two, well, mega churches, for want of a better phrase. And what I would say is that it says in the deliverance that we should learn about and pray for the church in Korea. We can also actually learn a lot from them as well. We attended a service twice at the same church, 12,000 people around us at this service. And by the way, that was one of 5 services that day. The gospel is thriving. The gospel message is thriving in South Korea. I've kept in touch with one of the pastors there. I haven't quite yet got 12,000 people into my wee church in the Raploch, but we're working on it. But I really commend this deliverance, and let us pray for, learn about, and learn from the church in Korea as well. Thank you, Moderator.
Thank you.
Oh, Barry Hughes. Did I say that?
No. That's okay. We think he's 475. Does the Assembly accept this deliverance? And online. Thank you. And we come now on to section 24. I have no people wishing to speak. Does the General Assembly accept section 24? Thank you. And online, we have a new section 25. I'll get the Principal Clerk to say who it's from and to read it.
Thank you very much. It's from the name of Karen Gillen. It's recognised with sadness the death of Bishop Michael Baroya of the Church of Bangladesh, and recall with gratitude the impact of his words on the floor of our Assembly over 20 years ago, which prompted the development of our work on climate change and led to our engagement with Eco Congregation Scotland.
Thank you, Karen Gillen.
Moderator Karen Gillen, 232. One of the great joys of my journey as a Christian has been the ways in which I've been able to engage with fellow brothers and sisters in Christ from so many different parts of the world. As we engage with each other, share experiences and learn from each other, we can effect change in ways that we never imagined possible. And Doug Roberts has shared one of those ways that we were able to support refugees in Malta. Every now and again on the floor of this Assembly, there are contributions from our sisters and brothers from across the globe that bring their situations right into our space, where their experience brings to life issues that we only really know about in theory. Bishop Barrow did just that. He was a thoughtful, gentle and humble man who worked tirelessly for the church, seeking to develop a vision for its work. He attended our General Assembly a number of years ago, and he spoke so movingly about the situation in Bangladesh that was being caused by the impact of climate change. He spoke passionately, bringing alive the plight of his people, particularly in the low-lying lands around the coast and river deltas, which were becoming more and more salinated and unsuitable for agricultural land. As he looked to the future, he talked about how his grandchildren may have no land to farm on, as his land was in the delta, even just 2 generations from him. The predicted changes for them at that moment were enormous. In the Assembly, you could have heard a pin drop. He challenged us in the Global North to take climate change seriously for the sake of his grandchildren and more like them around the world. He was clear in the need to cut carbon and to seek ways to combat climate change. His legacy was that the then World Mission Council were challenged to engage more with support for climate change programmes and to educate congregations on what they could do to change and adapt what they did to reduce their carbon footprint. In time, that grew into what we now know as Eco Congregations Scotland. What an amazing legacy for a remarkable man. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the Bishop's family, particularly his wife Mary, and to the leadership and members of the Church of Bangladesh at this time. May his soul rest in peace, good and faithful servant.
Thank you. Is the committee willing to accept that extra deliverance? Is the Assembly willing to accept that deliverance?